the agenda? Can we have an motion of approval?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's proceed. Meeting minutes of the meeting of January 23rd, 2025. Has everyone had an opportunity to review them? Any questions? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have a
Motion, yeah, motion, sorry.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
And I'll
Right.
second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Proclamations, National Procurement Months, Fix a Leak Week. This is a interesting set of proclamations. National Procurement Months. Having practiced law, I always worry about that when I see it. So, who is doing the reading?
I'll read one of them.
All right,
Or it says here,
can you
read
read the other
Oh,
one?
yeah, I guess I can.
Yeah, sure.
I'll do the procurement month. Proclamation, Procurement Month is a national celebration of the importance of procurement and purchasing professionals. Procurement professionals have a significant role in the quality, efficiency, and profitability of business and government throughout the United States. March has been nationally designated as Procurement Month for over 24 years and recognizes both the strategic value of the profession and the leaders who have contributed to the success of public procurement. In addition to the purchasing of goods and services, the purchasing and materials management professionals engage in or have direct responsibility for functions such as executing, implementing, and administering contracts, developing forecasts and procurement strategies, supervising and or monitoring the flow and storage of materials, and developing working relationships with suppliers and other departments within the organization. Metcom procurement professionals are currently responsible for managing and monitoring approximately $21.5 million worth of goods and services, which directly influence local, state, and national economics. The Commission recognizes the importance of procurement professionals to our organization, and we strive to assure the responsible use of ratepayers' dollars while maintaining the highest standards and providing efficient service. Metcom recognizes, supports, and practices the public procurement values and guiding principles established by Institute for Public Procurement. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission, do hereby recognize the month of March 2025 as National Procurement Month and celebrate the importance of our procurement staff professionals and their roles in business, industries, and governments. This date, February 27th, 2025.
Hey Joe, we'd like to get a picture with some of our procurement.
Yeah, I didn't have to read that one.
Going up procurements.
Procurement,
Okay, small team with a big call.
something for 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to be in that group.
And Mrs. Allison Johnson actually isn't here. She recently joined the accounts payable team, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention her contribution greatly over the past 3 or so years that she was with the procurement team. So
Well, we appreciate all that y'all do, because if it wasn't for y'all, they'd have no job.
10 years dead, Jim.
All right.
Who would you call?
And you guys pick the list?
Everybody.
Everybody? I get a kick out of this one. St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission was created by the state in 1957 as a quasi-governmental, non-profit body to supply water and sewer service to St. Mary's County and has been providing those services since 1964. Whereas National Fix a Leak was established as an annual event celebrating every March to raise awareness and remind customers that household leaks waste nearly 1 trillion gallons of water annually nationwide. So each year we hunt down the drips during Fix a Leak week. The Metropolitan Commission mission is to construct, operate, and maintain public water supply and treatment system in a manner that is sustainable and safe for the commission's employees, the environment, and the citizens of St. Mary's County. Today, the Metropolitan Commission maintains more than 257 miles of water main and supplies almost 1.4 billion gallons of clean, reliable, and safe drinking water each year to the residents of St. Mary's County. Whereas Fix a Leak Week reminds us that the average household leak can account for nearly 10,000 gallons of water wasted every year, and 10% of homes have leaks that waste 90 gallons or more per day. These types of leaks are often easy to fix, requiring only a few tools and hardware that can pay for themselves in water savings. Fixing easily corrected household water leaks can save homeowners about 10% on their water bills. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission, do hereby recognize March 17th to 23rd, 2025 as Fix a Leak Week to bring awareness to customers, their families, schools, and communities. All right.
So this is the Leak Foundation group, is it?
Leak Foundation.
Carry duct tape with them at all times. It's an extra gun. Absolutely. I got a pipe break. I got real close with my garage. Okay.
All right, the next item is the consent agenda. Any observations, questions, suggestions on the consent agenda?
I got one question. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's in the consent agenda. The list of people that are behind in the bills, I was looking through it the other night, and some of the names I recognized on there have passed away.
It would still be their
How
estate.
long did it take for it to get purged?
It's up to the attorney that's handling their estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did notice a couple people that I knew that had
Oh,
passed. And this one gentleman, he must have like 6 rentals, and he's on there every month. Did we ever tighten him?
oh, and he's not passed away, you're saying?
No, not that I know.
Passes away.
We need to call Doge on this and get it straightened out.
He's on there every month with like 5 or 6 rentals that are, looks like way behind.
Yes, I think I know who you're speaking about. And some of those have ended up on the tax sale property list. I mean, that's our normal process, is we contact them every single month.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I'm just curious.
They'll accumulate penalties and fees. And once they get on the tax sale list, hopefully
They come around.
pay. And we always prorate, where if you're on that list, you'll have to pay at least 6 months in advance, so that you won't be on the tax sale list the next year.
Any other questions? So do we need a motion to approve the consent agenda, right? Can we hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda's on new business. All right, Patty and Elks Lodge, that sounds interesting.
I'm going to invite up Mr. Malcolm House, chairman of the Elks Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Today we have and Commissioner Hewitt is here too.
Look, I'm the Esquire. I assist the exalted ruler in conducting the business of their. If you need a glass of water, I go get it.
And you do it well.
Today we have a water and sewer use billing adjustment request. And as per policy, anything exceeding $500 we bring for the board for their approval. Today is a leak that was in the pool at the Elks Lodge. I brought this item to you back in August just as an informational item to give you advance notice that we would be working with the lodge to reconcile and find a result that we were all agreeable to. The lodge also had installed an irrigation system, so we weren't sure if it was just the pool or maybe the irrigation system or a combination of the both that was causing the excessive use readings. Once the leak was discovered, we started the reconciliation process, and during that time, we agreed to a flat level payment for them that we both agreed to. And they have maintained that payment until we close out this case. The pool has been leaking since the summer of 2023, and their pool season is 6 months long. So prior to the leak, they had two successful pool seasons, 2021 and 2022. So what we provided them with all their usage and historical usage, and we came to an average of what their pool season should be based on the 2 years without a leak. And that was an agreeable amount. And as pointed out in your memo, the actual usage for 6 months was in 2023, 206,800 gallons, 371,794 gallons. And then the average is really 31,450. So we agree the water from the leak was not going into the sewer system. So we wanted to give some credit back to them because they had been charged for the full use, all the gallons going into the sewer system. So in addition to that, our policy allows for a water use adjustment, and that's based on 2 high months of usage. So the 2 consecutive high months, again, those prior numbers I gave you were a whole pool season of 6 months. These are just 2 months, 107,700 gallons and 86,800 gallons. And so part of our the water use side adjustment is what was charged under the highest tier, we reduce to the next lower tier rate, and we adjust the rate on those gallons. And I just want to say the lodge has been very pleasant to work with through this it's been 6-7 months that we've been working on this. They're going to repair their leak this spring before the pool season opens. They have swim teams, large groups of people that use the pool. So we have a recommended motion for you. And if Mr. House would like to add anything.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the commission for working with us on this. With the new frontage that we have with the FDR project being complete, we're anticipating a lot more traffic in front of the lodge. Most likely getting more people to join the lodge or at least the lodge pool. We do offer those memberships as well. Our intent is to have the leak fixed and verified when we open it here. We're going to open it a month early, not for use, but just to verify that we've gotten that all taken care of. And we'll continue to correspond with you folks, and we don't anticipate any further issues there with the leak of the pool. But once again, we really do appreciate you working with the adjustment. That allows the lodge to keep more money in our budget, which allows us to put more money back in the community and by the way of charity, et cetera. So really appreciate it. And I'm a big fan of the branding. Everybody on the committee having a nice glass of tap water. I think it's a very good one.
So do you know exactly where the leak is?
Yes, what we found was everybody was looking, it's an older pool, so everybody was looking at the bottom of the pool. What we didn't notice was that the scuppers where it goes into the filter had pulled away slightly from the edge of the pool. And so the water was hitting a certain level, and we were trying to find where it was in the system. Meanwhile, it was where they had just slightly pulled away and the water was making its way down there.
I'm asking the question in the sense of, is there a possibility that there's a second piece that we don't know about?
There could be, which is why we want to get things open a month early, and we're going to have that repaired, and we're going to monitor usage very closely. And if there is any other leak that we've detected, we're going to have to come back and figure out where that's coming from. But as it stands right now, with the pool level below that line, we haven't seen any other increased usage or anything out of the ordinary. But we're going to monitor that very closely, which is why we're giving ourselves an additional 4 weeks.
And we also, Commissioner, installed a new meter, and it allows for data logging. So the old meter was once a month, and we couldn't go back to specific days and see spikes. But with the new meter that is out there, we can do that now.
Not necessarily only to this, but is there a penalty of some kind for people to repair if they become aware of leaks? It seems a little strange to be in 2000 and, sort of 3 years or 2 years later, then we became aware of a leak. Is there some kind of an obligation of the owners to repair that? And if not, is there a penalty? Because
There's not a monetary penalty, but we can restrict usage.
Mhm.
That is allowed under Chapter 113 to restrict usage.
But we didn't do that.
We don't do that, no.
Mhm.
We try not to do that.
Mhm.
Is it just one stumper, or have you checked them all?
Checked them all. We've already got the estimate for the repair, and as soon as we get the cover off, we're going to go ahead and instigate those repairs and verify that everything is copacetic.
Well, the good news is you probably don't have to drain the pool.
That is true. So
That'd been another big hit.
that would have been another big hit and a lot more water as well.
Absolutely, which we would appreciate, but yeah.
All right. So we have a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, would someone
Yep.
make a motion?
I move that the commission approve the water and sewer use billing adjustment request from the St. Mary's County's Elks Lodge number 2092 in the total amount of $147.38 for July and August 2024 bills, and the total amount of $2,855.25 for May through October 2023 and 2024 bills, which represents a total reduction of $3,002.63. I further move that the payment plan will be rescinded effective with the March billing, and no further adjustments will be considered while the pool is in despair.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Any questions? Any other comments?
I'd just like to make the comment that the Elks Lodge does a lot for the community. It's not just for themselves. It's not just for monetary profit. They do a lot with this, when Town Creek's pool broke and they were handling a lot of the swim teams and stuff like that within the county, the Elks Lodge stepped up and took a lot of that burden. So I think that should definitely be within the consideration as well. What we got going on?
Any other observations, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Happy swimming.
Thank you very much.
No, this is not related to the leak week, is it?
Be sure to promote that as well at the library.
I always worry about that with community pools.
There you go.
There are holes in the ground that you put a lot
That's right.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you both.
Thanks.
All right, the rate study update.
Commissioners, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As a part of the 2025 budget, the funding for an updated water and sewer rate study was approved. We perform these studies about once every 5 years. As we discussed with the board, the results of the study should be available sometime during this fiscal year for implementation in the next budget cycle. As a part of what we do probably at every meeting, we listen to the board all the time, we take notes. Over the past year, there's been a lot of discussion and some suggestions about our rates. Some of those you can see highlighted in section H3B, which I also attached. In particular, Commissioner Dugan, you talked one time about recommending a potential charge or a breakout charge to recover or support a portion of our total water and sewer. If you have an EDU and you're holding it, even though you're not connected, maybe there should be a charge associated with that. I think the response at that time was that the operating costs were already covered, but that we could perhaps break that out into its own separate cost. We're also looking at our customer growth rate. As you know, we've been assuming a flat customer growth rate, even though the county is growing at about 1%. We're going to look at every single line item of accounting in our budget to look at what the commodities have done over the past 5 years to make sure that when we look at our rates that we're trending, not just in general by overall budget, but by actual line item in our budget. We're going to look at our 3-tiered structure. Many jurisdictions have gone to 4-tier structures. We have a large gap between our 2nd and 3rd tier. 0 to 5,000 is one charge, 5 to 20 is another charge, and then above 20 is the next charge. We've always thought there was an intermediate tier in there between 12 and 15,000 that might be appropriate. So we'll have our consultant look at that as well. We also will have the consultant not only look at the next 5 years, but prorate a projection out to 10. We have found over the past 2 studies that were done, somewhere around the 5-year mark, the estimates of revenues and expenses sort of start to falter, and they're not very reliable. So that's why we like to keep on pace every 5 years. And with that, Patty wants to give you a little bit of background on how we procured the consultant they're recommending. And we also wanted to point out that this is not an action item that necessarily needed to be brought to the board under the procurement policy. Anything under 50,000 I can approve. But since this was a specific budgeted item by the board, we thought it was appropriate to bring it back and get your concurrence.
So with other procurements, we posted the request for proposals on eMaryland Marketplace. We received 3 proposals. The evaluation committee reviewed and scored the technical proposal first. Then the price proposals were opened. New Gen Strategies and Solutions in the total not to exceed amount of $48,750 was the lowest responsible bidder. They are located in Annapolis. They have experience in and around Maryland, DC, Virginia, and also experience really across the country. But we did recognize a lot of the local utilities that they have experience with. We're excited to begin the rate study process. And as George said, we do not have a motion for you today. It does not require your approval, but we wanted full transparency because we know this was an important item for you. So really, it's just an informational item today.
And we've got a schedule set up so that somewhere in the neighborhood of the August timeframe, the consultant will be able to come back and give recommendations, which would be a precursor. For example, today is the first operating budget presentation. So if we can bring some new rates in August, we can maybe get those incorporated as part of our assumptions going into the 2027.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you have any questions?
And anything in the scope of services you think we missed, just give us a call and we'll add that on.
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Haven't seen Ed Hogan for a while, but here he is.
There you
Big as life. Yeah.
Good.
Mechanics Truck and Service Cranes Purchase Contract.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have 3 items up for your consideration today. The first of which is the mechanics trucks with service crane purchase. The maintenance staff responds to service calls to a variety of service calls at our water and wastewater facilities. These service calls come in around the clock, 365 days a year. Staff developed specifications for 2 replacement truck chassis. We got the bids in. It was a fairly complex bid evaluation. There was a number of bids that did not meet our specs. There was a couple bids that actually were withdrawn because the vendors realized that they did not meet the specs. So it was a fairly complex evaluation of the bid results. At the end, based on the bid results, staff is recommending 2 awards, the first of which for the water department crane truck. That's truck number 1. That is being requested to be awarded to All Roads Kenworth Mardello. The second truck is the collections department crane truck. We are requesting that bid be awarded to Lindsay Ford LLC based on the submitted bids. With board approval today, delivery is expected within 6 months. These capital expenditures were approved as part of the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement budget last year. So with that, I will take any questions.
What are we doing with the old ones?
Depending on the need at the other plants, one of the things that we've been trying to do is we've been trying to push some of the older vehicles to the plants where they're not going to leave the facility. Right now, there is a crane truck down there that I think is a 2010. One of these vehicles will actually be pushed down to that facility to be a replacement for that crane truck, and that crane truck will go to auction. So once these vehicles have plenty of miles on them, we try to push them down to squeeze all the use that we can get out of them at the plant. So that's what we're planning on doing with these.
And from our kind of projection perspective, I know we put them in the budget. In terms of the mileage, did we end up having a lot more mileage on these than we thought, or was it less, or was it where we thought?
It's pretty
More
much
so for the next projection is why I'm asking the
It's
question.
pretty much where we thought. I mean, the vehicles that get the most use of the grinder pump, we have a crane truck for the grinder pump. That gets probably about 250,000 miles every 2 years or so, just because it is constantly on the road. I mean, that truck is running almost nonstop. I mean, when guys are on standby, we get grinder pumps calls, get pretty much 24/7, so it's running up and down, you know, all over the county. So we will keep the existing grinder pump truck. Hopefully, with the existing the purchase of one of the crane trucks will go to the maintenance part, sewer maintenance department. We hope to kind of dial down that mileage, the excessive miles that it gets per year. But still, you know, we're looking at a vehicle that is used very extensively.
And how interchangeable are these two?
Not very. The reason for that is if you've got a dedicated maintenance vehicle that's working on a sewer station, we don't want to be able to use another dedicated maintenance vehicle that's used strictly on the power side. We don't want to interchange the two. You don't want to use the tools that you use at a wastewater station to be used on the clean water side. So we do try to keep them, they're separate.
Yeah, makes sense.
Is there ever an opportunity, or maybe it's not feasible, to just buy the chassis and put the pump units and everything on it? Or do they both kind of wear out at the same time? Or
We have in the past.
I've heard,
We've just replaced the body, and the chassis is actually in good shape.
Right.
You know, we have taken the vehicles up the road to a manufacturer at second hand chassis coach maker. So we have done that in the past. But typically what we find is that, you know, the utility bodies are built pretty well nowadays. So really they're wearing out at honestly the same rate.
okay. I'm sure you looked into that. I just thought you'd explain.
Any other questions? Just for clarity, you may already have answered it, but is the price that we ended up with more or less the same as what we budgeted?
For the water crane truck, that came in, I think, about 4,000 over. For the sewer crane truck, that came approximately 40,000 over. It is very difficult nowadays to kind of predict the vehicle market, and you know, with people marking things up. And again, the sewer maintenance crane truck did require a larger crane, heavier duty crane, and some other extraneous equipment that was added on, like bumpers and things like that. That kind of added more to the price. So that was one of the. I mean, so it did come in over the budget estimate of 85.
Okay. It doesn't affect the other purchases for the same period?
No, there actually were other vehicle savings.
Yeah,
Within the same.
anticipated that, but, so, all right, so we need a motion. All right.
Can I ask one more question real quick?
Yes.
So basically you're saying that the total price is fully operational when you pick it up, it's fully operational, stick some decals on the side of it and it can go to work, or?
We do the decals here in house. Lights, with the exception of the actual, hand tools that may be on the truck, it's going to be ready to go. As soon as we get it in, it's going to be in there.
Move that the commission accept and award the procurement of a 2025 Ford Super Duty F-550 from All Roads Kenworth Mardella of Mardella Springs, Maryland, for the water department truck number 1, for a total price of $188,580, as submitted in the bid dated November 15th, 2024, for all pricing, terms, and conditions of the invitation to bid number 25-07-F for the mechanic's truck with the service cranes. Further move that the commission accept and award the procurement of a 2025 Ford Super Duty F-550 from Lindsay Ford LLC of Wheaton, Maryland, for the collections department truck number 2, for a total price of $221,400, as submitted in their bid dated November 18th, 2024, and per all pricing, terms, and conditions of the invitation to bid number 25-07-F for the mechanic's truck with the service cranes. Further move to authorize and direct staff to sign all documents related to these contract awards, including but not limited to all approved change orders.
Have a seconder?
Second that.
All right, any other questions, observations? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any ayes have it? Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item up is the fire hydrant painting contract award. The primary purpose of a fire hydrant is fire suppression. Other uses include line flushing, as well as testing the hydraulic capacity of the distribution system. Currently, there are approximately 2,800 fire hydrants, those are both publicly and privately owned, throughout the county that the commission operates or oversees. Historically, each of the MECOM's fire hydrant has been inspected and tested once every 3 years. This has allowed for very good public protection ratings by the Insurance Services Office Corporation. For fire protection in areas that are served by the commission-owned and operated hydrants within the county. The ITV was advertised in January 2025 with one addendum issued. The bid opening was held in early February of 2025 with 12 bids received. Staff is requesting board approval of contract 25-09-F to procure fire hydrant painting services from the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, ESG Hydrant Services LLC, for pricing as submitted in their bid. ESG is also the incumbent contractor on this contract. They've been doing the last 8 years worth of work for us. We are very happy with those guys. And with that, I will take any questions.
Questions?
It's all the hydrants, all 2,800? Is that doing all the hydrants in the system?
It's on a 3-year program. So the money that is allocated for this upcoming fiscal year, that's for the inspection and for the painting. So it's on a 3-year cycle.
Why do you think such the wide range of dollar value?
A wide range of
Dollar value on these bids?
some of the bids were deemed non-responsive. They did not have the experience that we require. We gave time limit.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So quite often what we find with this specifically is that many contractors think they can paint. It's painting a hydrant. But there's actually a very specific skill set that's needed for those hydrants to be painted. And that's why Ed has the specifications written in a specific way, and experience is very important as part of that. So the range, in my opinion, professionally, is because people who are not qualified tend to bid a lower value and unit cost, and they typically are deemed non-responsive. They don't have the required experience and meet the specifications. Whereas more experienced bidders tend to bid in the city, so Baltimore, DC, Virginia, and so their pricing is more on their geographic. This particular contractor is more in the Southern Maryland region, and so we feel that his bid is competitive.
Yeah, I just want to see the one that's 500,000 plus, you know. It's like,
We were shocked as well.
It's
I
a
was
lot of
going to
money
go
per
into the
hydrant
paint
there,
business,
boy.
but I decided against it. So,
So is there any other maintenance piece that they do, or is it just paint?
They do test the hydrants.
They do a flow test?
Yeah. And hydrostatic tests.
And how do we witness that?
How do we
Witness that?
documented.
They do submit the results. We will occasionally, just have an operator with them to make sure that they are doing that work. Like I said, over the last 8 years, we've had a really good relationship with them. They're pretty forthcoming with us about, if they find a hydrant that we don't know about, they'll let us know, and they'll go ahead and clear it for us and things like that. So, I think over the last 8 years, we developed a really good relationship with them. That's not to say we're just giving them a blank check also.
No.
But we do verify what they do.
My question probably is more directed to the sense, do we know, like, how are they doing their calibrations for their flow test and that type of stuff?
They have equipment when they do the flow testing, so that's how they do
But
it.
do we ever do any comparison ones to see that
We do
from an
not.
engineering perspective,
We do
whether
not.
it's useful to have,
Right.
if all of a sudden we're,
Right.
not because they're doing something wrong, but just because maybe the information flows a little differently, whether we ought to spot check some of those to,
It's possible,
See
but,
that we're-
but when you're talking about 2,800 hydrants, and it's in the distribution system, they're looking at data points, I guess, for hydrostatic pressures. So over the entire system, if their methods are faulty, we would see.
yeah, I'm not
some
suggesting
crazy-
that, I'm not suggesting
Right.
that at all. It's more of, is there some useful data maybe to do some comparison that maybe theirs is 5% reading differently than 5% of what ours is.
It's also monitored by us in the stations as well. We do monitor, pressures and things like that. So again, across the board, system wide, if they get some wacky readings, less than say 20 or something, there should be other issues out there that we can pick up. So you're looking at basically it's a closed hydraulic system. And they're looking at various points for pressure within that system. So yeah, I kind of understand what you're asking. The answer is that do we independently verify this?
Again, I'm not suggesting we do it all,
Right.
just whether there's all of a sudden that we're doing some periodically,
Right.
and
We can certainly look at it.
whether there's any information gained from that.
Right.
That's really the direction of the question, not suggesting that there's any issue with what they've been doing.
Right.
Perhaps even the last time they calibrated their equipment might be a good data point.
So they do a pressure test and then they put the color on based upon their test? Or is
Based
the
on the
color
flow
already-
rate. It's all based on the flow rate, not necessarily the pressure. Pressure and flow, they're related.
Flow rate, yeah.
Right. So when the fire department goes out there, they know what amount
What to
of
expect,
water
right.
is available at that particular hydrant.
Well, I figured out why there's different prices. I think it has to do with the size of the brush that they use.
Very well.
You can get a lot more done with a bigger brush and offer.
And I will tell you that some of the other counties have had other contracts, and they've gone with some of the lower bidders, and it's somebody out there with a rattle can. Ours, I think, I'm pretty proud of the way our hydrants look.
Yeah. I made
They're
that
very obvious.
I made that clear to you when I first
Yeah.
came on board that I saw somebody doing it. I said, oh, I'm
Right.
going to come down. So I pulled up and I watched this guy do that. It was like a Rembrandt. It wasn't like, bam, boom, gone. I mean, he was painting,
Right.
took his care, cleaned around it and everything, and I brought it to your attention. If
And-
you remember. So if that's the
Again,
same people, yeah.
when these guys need the hydrants, it's not great weather conditions. It's usually after hours. It's at night. You want a hydrant that's visible, highly visible, accessible,
Accessible.
and easy to see.
Yep.
And I think over the last 8 years. I think these guys have done a fantastic job.
It's definitely not a fence or a building. And some of the contractors literally had experience in fences and buildings, not hydrants specifically. So very well-written specifications to make sure that we got a qualified contractor.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
All the
Observations?
hydrants full of water, ready to go?
Excuse me?
Are they full of water, ready to go? Like California?
Actually, the hydrants don't have any water in them. They're usually they're considered to be dry barrel hydrants. So the water supply is actually below grade.
Oh.
So if a vehicle hits the hydrant,
That's why
you won't get
It doesn't go.
this
Yeah,
big.
okay.
looks good in the movies.
Well, it looks
Looks
good in
good in
movies, but they're designed to be sheared off at ground level. So there's no water within the hydrant.
So when they hook a hose to it, that's what generates.
He hooks a hose, fire department hooks a hose up to it. They open the valve. The valve is actually in the ground below
Oh, okay.
grade. and that's
17
what- that's
turns
what
on the
fills it.
valve, 17 turns.
They don't freeze.
So it is not the California format.
No.
That's what I was thinking.
That's pretty well-
California
Yeah,
goes to the
that's only in the movie.
hydrant.
Our reservoir's
No,
full.
that fire, California fire, they said that we didn't have any water.
Yeah.
Crazy.
At least we got water, that's good.
Our towers are full, yes. Our
Yes,
reservoirs,
towers
our
are
towers
full.
are full, yes.
All right, I assume we have another motion to approve this one.
I could read that if you would
We
like.
have a volunteer, that's great.
We do, all right. This is for the fire hydrant painting contract number 25-09F. Move that the commission accept and award the fire hydrant painting contract number 25-09-F to ESG Hydrant Services LLC at the unit prices submitted in their bid dated February 6, 2025. Further move that the staff be authorized and directed to sign all documentation related to this contract award, including but not limited to the contract renewals, and all approved amendments.
Have a seconder?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. The last item up for your consideration today is the Industrial Park Water Station well pump replacement and redevelopment. Staff is
Quite a
seeking
mouthful.
approval for the rehabilitation of the existing supply well pump at the Industrial Park Water Pump Station. The well became operational in 2006 and is permitted with a daily average withdrawal rate of just over 380,000 gallons. Recently, operations staff noted that the well's yield was declining. We weren't getting the volume of water out of that well that we had, were expecting. We called our contractor in, and they determined that the well needed to be redeveloped and the well pump needed to be replaced as well. Redeveloping the well is basically swabbing the well out, cleaning it out, getting rid of all the silt, the sand that builds up, and things like that. So therefore, staff is requesting board approval for the proposal dated January 2025 to redevelop the well and replace the well pump at the facility. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions?
Is that the normal shelf life for the pump, you would say?
Typically, no. Typically, we get about 20 to 30 years. It's a little on the low side for the life of the pump. We think what has happened is, if you look at the schematic and memo there, at the bottom of the well, you have well screens, and that's basically a perforated pipe. We think that there's some sand and grit that had gotten in there. Sand and grit going through a well or a pump like that really don't mix. So we think that's what would cause the premature demise of that particular pump. What we're hoping is once we redevelop that well, we airlift all the material out of the bottom of the well. That the well casing should still be intact, and we should be able to get another 20 years out of the well. And we're hoping to get another 20 to 25 years out of the well pump as well.
Will you run a TV down there or anything to see if,
They have ran the TV down there. Once they redevelop it, they will actually run it down to the very bottom.
so that you know we're not
So we'll look,
chasing after?
right, we'll look at the condition of the well and the casing as well.
Right.
Where is this exactly located at? What industrial park is this located in?
That well is across from, you go past Agape automotive. And then you go.
Oh, so the industrial park at the Holly, back off of Airport View Drive?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
But it is part of the overall Lexington Park system.
Well, I see it said Lexington Park, I'm
Right.
thinking,
Right.
that's Hollywood, that's not Lexington Park. I get you.
Right, any other questions, observations?
Is this just a typical drawing of a normal pump at a house or anything else? Is a commercial one different,
The commercial one is not any different.
just bigger?
This particular well is deeper than most residential wells. Most residential wells are about 300 to 450 feet deep. This well is about 900 plus feet deep. It does go into the upper Patapsco aquifer. Really, it's the same as a residential well. It has a larger casing. Some of the screens are stainless instead of perforated PVC. But the pitless adapter, obviously the pump is bigger as well. But it's just an upscale version of a domestic drinking
That's the
water.
way they're done. That's what I was thinking. It's just bigger, so that's
Right.
kind of a typical thing because it says two house. I
Right.
figured that was a generic type of thing, but yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? You have a motion?
I'll read it. Move that the commission accept and award the industrial park well pump replacement and redevelopment to AC Schultz of Maryland Incorporated for a total amount of $96,150 as submitted in their proposal dated January 13th, 2025, and per their pricing, items, and conditions of the well and pump service and repair contract number 23-08-F. Further move that the staff be authorized and directed to sign all documentation relating to this award, including but not limited to all approved change orders.
We have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, we have two seconders.
22.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have another pump.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Ed.
When is this work to be done?
Excuse me?
When is this work to be done?
I'm sorry, Mom.
When is this work to be done?
As soon as a purchase order is cut, once a purchase order is cut, they should be on site within 2 to 3 weeks to redevelop it. The order of the pump itself may take a little bit longer. So,
We actually already have an open purchase order because they did investigative work. So your
Yes.
board approval expedites that process
Yep.
greatly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good time to have it fix a leak.
Yeah. All right. So continuing business, budget work session. George and Patty.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're getting ready to do the first round of our operating budget, and not to cut to the chase, but
We're starting with capital.
we're starting with capital.
Sorry.
Oh, well, operating one was a fun one. All right, we'll do capital first then. You may proceed.
Oh. So today we will be seeking authorization to take our capital budget to the Planning Commission. And we can start with, this was information from our January 23rd meeting, what we have already incorporated, the few changes that we did make to the capital budget. So we deferred the state highway project. We talked about that. We reviewed the allocation of St. Clement Shores wastewater treatment plant between the capital contribution and the system improvement charges. The St. Clement Shores sewer extension project, we used to have that within our debt service and rates and charges, and we have taken that out because we're planning that project under the assumption that it will be a benefit assessment and funded by the property owners. A combined effort between we've made. We do have impacts to the rates and charges, and we have gone over that at the last meeting, and we will have a future slide where we'll show you what changes occurred in the rates and charges. George, the Bay Restoration Fund.
Right, there's two things that are different. The reason we brought this slide back is one, we wanted to let you know that we made all the recommendations we talked about at the last meeting, But you'll see that blue note about 3/4 of the way down the page. On January 27th, we received information that the federal government had a temporary pause on a lot of their loan programs. We don't know how that's going to shake out. The good news is we already didn't get the Bay Restoration funds for the Piney Point, force main, which is not really good news, but we were able to reprogram that. The bad news, perhaps, is St. project. Piney Point, we were eligible, but we didn't receive the funding. On St. Clement Shores, we did receive the funding, but with this federal pause, we're not sure how that trickle-down effect will impact the project. The other item on the bottom, we had spoken about benefit assessments and the way benefit assessments typically work. The Metropolitan Commission borrows the money at its interest rate, and the residents pay you back, or the benefited properties pay you back. I spoke with the county administrator on February 13th, and he made no promises. But one of the thoughts is, if we want to work in a partnership together, that perhaps that we can procure a 0% interest loan somehow by using the county's reserve. We can actually reduce that cost to those new customers. So that's just in concept. We'll probably talk more about it at the joint meeting in May. But we are having some discussions about trying to lower the cost to those people.
And we get right into the rates and charges, the system improvement charges. You can see the water is $1.57. I'm sorry, $1.57 more, and only 60 cents more per month for sewer. The combined increase is 17.
So what I would say is the projections that we made and the adjustments that we were able to make after our last meeting put us right on track with where we were supposed to be. And what that amounts to is about $1.49 a month on the average increase on system improvement side.
And that seems pretty reasonable.
Very, very modest considering everything that we've talked about over the past few months.
Capital contribution charges. And as we presented last month, no proposed changes to our water capital contribution charge. That's great. And sewer, our projection in 25 for FY26 was $8,924.15. 56. So we're coming in this year at $56 more than we projected last year. Again,
Still pretty close.
Yeah.
If we can go back one slide, the one thing that we did want to point out, commissioners, is Calvert County, our sister county, their capital contribution charges is $24,000 today, as we speak today. We don't project to reach that number until FY31. In addition, Leonardtown, who's growing, leaps and bounds, we could actually say that. Their capital contribution charges are also $24,000 per year. And again, we're not projected to reach that number till FY31. So I think we've done a good job bringing our projections in line and moving our projects around to make sure that we conform with what we told folks we would do last year.
And our debt limit. So our debt limit, ideally you would retire a dollar for dollar as you take on new debt, retire the old debt. We retire debt at about approximately $7.9 million a year. And again, we, as I reiterate every meeting, we budget our debt in full. We're required to do that. And we base our rates and charges on what our debt is going to be, but we don't borrow that money until we're ready to spend it. So that's that 86% blue dot across the graph that shows where we actually are with debt. So we're really within that range that we want to be, the 120 to 140 million. And yeah, I think.
And I forget which commissioner brought it up one day. We had have a lot of discussions about the consent decree projects, you know, the 3 projects that are costing us over $35 million. And I think the question was, well, what portion of that debt is that? And if it were not for those projects, which, you know, by the consent decree, have a specific timeline, we don't have the ability to move a project to the right or to the left to adjust our debt. They all have to be done under the same timeline. So that orange shaded area on those graphs represents if those projects, the impact of all those 3 projects having to be done at the same time, and our inability to be able to move those around to adjust the debt. And you can see without those projects, we'd be right in the middle of our target range. But we're still, I believe, in really good shape with respect to debt and debt service.
Yes. Great. So again, today, basically everything you have seen in January, and today we're just seeking your permission your authorization to take this to Planning Commission. The meeting is March 24th. We've included the project summary sheets with our notes, which we provided for you last month. If you have any questions on specific projects, please reach out at any time. Ask George, myself, or Christy especially.
I'm not trying to make it easy for you today,
Yeah.
but we're 11 cents less than we projected last year and $56 more on the other side. And those are the 2 large charges, the 2 big charges that we have to cover our capital costs. And
So we did provide a motion for you. This one does have action.
Mhm. Will somebody look the motion and read it?
I can read it. Fiscal motion, fiscal year 2026 capital improvement budget and fiscal year 2027 through 2031 capital improvement plan. I move that the commission authorize staff to submit the proposed fiscal year 2026 capital improvement budget and the fiscal year 2027 through 2031 capital improvement plan to the St. Mary's County Planning Commission for review.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
All right, any other questions? I think it was a very clear presentation, so I didn't expect many
well, it was
questions.
pretty short.
Yes.
And again, we included the summary sheets on slides 8 through 12. We encourage you to not necessarily carry those around, but whenever you get asked, what did you do differently than you did before? Those 4 pages tell you all the changes and given it in a summary fashion. So hopefully you can use those and answer any questions you might have.
Do we have a seconder? Did we already? Okay. Any other questions, observations? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay. So today we have our first draft of the operating budget.
Mhm.
Apparently the second time.
You'll notice there's only 1 check mark on the budget process slide, but we think we are in a really good place. So after today, we'll have many more checks on this sheet. Today, we do not need a decision on COLAs and merit, but we have received all our submissions from our departments. They've identified essential cost changes and their priorities. We've identified realignments we can make from within. We always look at historical expenditures to use for projections. We've vetted the requests internally. Capital expenditures, which are capital equipment, you'll see the list in there of what we've identified as needs. And we always look to see, like the large equipment that you just awarded for operations, that the expense of that large equipment is at a level beyond $100,000 that we actually budget that in the capital budget and take that out of operating. We do keep our fleet trucks and vehicles in the operating budget. We look at all our contracts, material costs, delivery costs, state mandates to come up with our budget request. Our performance measures are now in a new dashboard, which is in this presentation. You'll be able to see that. And we actually have a balanced budget recommendation today.
We'll just cut to the chase. We're excited about presenting this to you today because our baseline budget is actually below last year's approved. So the only thing the only real decision that has to be made over the next several months is what our rates and charges will be and how much reserve we want to propose. And we'll go over some of that, some recommendations today. So we're starting off on our first draft in a really good spot.
We always like our target draft budget to be 2% or less of an increase from the prior year. And we do meet that with this recommended or requested budget. I don't want to say recommended because we're only in our first draft. We'll incorporate the impacts of a merit COLA. Those are identified separately at this point in time. Incorporated, like I said, any state mandated or legislative impacts. I think it was in January where you approved the market rate study. So we'll identify a set aside for that for when we possibly get results. And again, the reserve that we recommend for you today. We're actually proposing a 3% or more reserve.
And I think at our last meeting, it was Commissioner Mattingly, we had a really brief discussion about employee benefits. Were there any other things that we could do for our employees that weren't necessarily overly cost prohibitive, but that we could do? And I think the suggestion at the time was take-home vehicles, and we dispelled that as probably not the best idea. But we've come up with a list on slide 11 that we'll get to on some little things that can be done. Something as small as just increasing the phone stipend. You know, when you use your personal phones for business use by $10 a month. Small things like that go a long way for employees.
Okay. So commissioners, here is our new dashboard.
So before we get started, as a part of the strategic business plan last year, we wanted to share with you some key performance indicators that we came up with. We identified several. I think there's 31 of them altogether. They're on 2 pages, and they're in 7 different categories: operational efficiency, personnel workforce, system integrity and reliability, consumer affordability, fiscal management, customer relations and service, compliance and enforcement. I thought those were good, catchy categories. We toyed with the idea of calling it a report card. If you look at the color coding at the bottom, you know, excellent, good, fair, and needs improvement almost sound like your A through D that you used to get in high school. But we decided to call it a performance dashboard because really that's what it is. For example, I'd like to point out just a couple of those. In the first category of operational efficiency, you'll see our total O&M cost for water services based on dollars per million gallons is on the higher end. So on the surface, it would appear to need improvement. However, if you skip 2 lines down and you look at what our total O&M costs are per 100 miles of pipe, we're in very good shape. We're on the low end. We have a very extensive rural system. So although our costs are higher, it is because we're so spread out. And when you look at it per mile or per square mile, our costs are much more in line. So we didn't want to call it a report card because we're not doing poorly with respect to total O&M costs. We're doing very well based on per 100 miles. So that's why we're calling this a dashboard. It sometimes flags you to look at maybe your operations in another way. Likewise, if you look at your total O&M cost for wastewater services per 100 miles of pipe, we're on the lower end of the AWWA standards. In fact, we're around 3.7 million per 100 miles of pipe, and the higher end is about 4.5 million. So based on AWWA standards, we're doing really well as an organization. And I don't want to go through all of these. This is brand new to you. It's brand new to us. We've been working on this for the past 6 to 8 months to try to find performance indicators that we think are true measures. And the idea here is to perhaps not include that in this year's annual report, but maybe start putting this in an annual report on a yearly basis and also reporting to you once a year as well. Second category, personnel and workforce. We have a good number of FTEs. That's all I'll say. On the next page, we had talked about fire hydrants a little bit earlier. We only have 0.8% of those out of service. There was a point in time where that number was significantly higher. And by that, I mean upwards as high as 10%. But over the past 3 years, we have whittled that down to 0.8%. Having hydrants in service is critical, especially in a rural jurisdiction. When you look at our water line breaks, you've heard a lot of those. Wacomico Shores, we've had 5 or 6 in the past month. We try to send those emails out to you. We're still doing fairly well. We're in the mid-level range as far as water line breaks. Sewer line breaks give us the most headaches, but when you actually look at the number of breaks per 100 miles, we're doing extremely well on that side. Customer affordability, you hear that every year. We'll give you an operating budget presentation that talks about affordability, median household income, what customer bills are. We do really, really well there. I thought about adding perhaps the results of our annual audit, with the goal being an unmodified opinion, and maybe stating that every year. Whenever we receive an unmodified opinion, that really is a big deal. So we thought we could add that to this as well. And we talked a little bit earlier about delinquent property tax sales. If you notice our delinquency rate, if you look at the number of accounts delinquent, which are greater than 30 days, we're at 20%. We send out over 400 letters a month on people who are delinquent, and we threaten to turn off their water. That 20% is extremely high. Does it need improvement? Well, it's flagged as needing improvement, but if you jump down to the next metric, the next key performance measure, by the time we get to tax sale, we only have about 0.04% that ever make it, because eventually they pay. So that's why this is a dashboard and not a report card, because one metric just gives us pause to look at the next metric. So if there's anything else that you think we should track, or that you'd like to see tracked in any way, shape, or form, certainly 31 is a good start. We don't want it to be overburdensome, but we think these two would fit nicely on one page in an annual report. And actually, what we have in our annual report now are statistics. Statistics are just that: number of stations, number of gallons. But we think this is a much better measure as far as outwardly facing to the public and our customers. So that took too long, but that's what you have now, and we hope to bring that back to you every single year, so you can see how we're doing.
What happened to all of the inflation that we started working on? You know, in 3-4 years ago, we were very concerned that we would probably see an inflation rate, you know, across the board of what did we decide?
So what you'll see on slide 9, and we'll get to that, is at that point in time, we recommended a significantly larger reserve.
Right.
The next year, the reserve was less, but it was still overly conservative. The following year, it was even less. So we were able to absorb that, in our opinion.
That's
And you did increase.
positive. Yeah. Pardon me?
You authorized increases in our operating budget. Specifically, we identified chemicals, which is the largest one.
Right.
Electric. I think it was 2 years ago that SMECO had a large increase in their rates. So we did up the budget for those items, but we always try to identify within, you know, where we can cut back. So our budget increase doesn't always match a percentage of inflation.
And the budget requests from our departments don't always match the amount they receive, or that we recommend, because we can find it, you know, sometimes it's cross-departmental. They look within their own budgets, their own individual budgets, but sometimes we're aware of cross-departmental realignments that we can make that they're not aware of. So we sit down and explain that to them, and it seems to go well.
Good.
And we looked at a few trending comparisons. Operating expenditures for water and wastewater utilities continue to climb, as we said, and that's nationwide. Over the last 10 years, expenditures have risen 15%, where Metcom, between 2019 and 2024, our rates have increased on average of 3.3% and 2.4% per year. So we've been following those trends, and we think we're doing very well.
mean, we obviously wouldn't pick, we're selective at what we pick, but places like Baltimore City, for example, their rates are jumping 15% and 3%, whereas our rates are going up 2.7 and 2.1. Baltimore City, probably not a fair comparison, but it's just to let you know that within the 50-mile radius, you're seeing increases that are significantly higher. Anne Arundel County, their water usage is going up $3.45 and $6.06 for wastewater. Ours is only $1.90 for water and $5.60 for sewer. Our sewer side's a lot closer than theirs. Charles County, they're expected to increase by $2.10 per month for residential customers and $9.97 per month on the sewer side. Our combined total is only increasing by $1.91. So I think we're doing
Those are the
extremely well.
things that customers want to see. They can't follow charts and all that, but when you write it out like that and do a comparison in 2 or 3 sentences, they're saying, yeah, my bill went up, but boy, I'm glad I don't live
Right.
so-and-so.
That's not always the first shot of defense for us. We have to explain why it went up even $1.70.
Yeah.
Trust us. And I think Commissioner Meyerman, you had a
Yeah.
question either at the last meeting or in the meeting before, and it had to do with consumer price index and how that compared with water and wastewater. I apologize for the
Yeah.
the poor nature of this graphic, but it was the only thing I could find when I did my research.
And I'll read this real quick. It has, the cost of water and sewer service has continued to outpace the median household income and general costs represented by the consumer price index over the past 2 decades. So you can see on their graph how the water and sewer is the blue and how it is definitely outpacing the CPI.
And the median household income.
Yeah.
So that was there just, in deference to you,
Yeah.
sir.
You've seen this chart and table year after year. So our goal every year is to reach 95% minimum target efficiency for our actual revenues compared to what we budget for revenues. And you can see on the right-hand side that, yes, we have achieved that goal and exceeded that goal. So for FY 2025, our current year, mid-year projections, we've performed those. They are actually at the back of this package for you to look at your convenience. But based on our projections, I'm calculating it out to be 98% or more for efficiency. So that's great. And then our baseline budget, we're using our historical trends to come up with our revenue projection and again to reach an efficiency that we think we can achieve.
And this is where we first noticed, this was as far back as October, we first noticed that our projections based on trending data was a little bit lower than 2025's approved. So we thought, I wonder if there's some room here to bring this budget in fairly flat. Same thing on the expenditure side. If you look at your 95% efficiency or greater in FY 20 through 2024, and our 2024 numbers are based on our final audit, so we use those numbers. We were at 94.5, so right at the 95% efficiency. Whenever we exceed 100%, or the percentage is very low, like 80%, we obviously look at our rates and charges the subsequent year. Similarly, we look at our trending data, and once again, the trending data appeared that we could perhaps bring in a baseline budget that was below the FY 25 approved budget. And that will be on slide 9, which is the next slide. You've seen this graph again because it's accumulated over time. And if you were here in 2016, you would have also seen it. Basically, every year we track our historical expenses. We use the prior fiscal year audit. We assume a 95% efficiency in the current year. And with all those numbers, we then fit a curve in and use that as our trending data to project to 2026 or the next fiscal year. In fact, back in October when we looked at this, We believed it was possible to bring in a budget that was somewhere in the neighborhood of 19.9 million, which was below the 20.28 million in 2025. That was yet to be seen, but we do look at this type of data going into our budget to help steer us in the right direction.
All right, now into the fun stuff. As I said, we've looked at all our requirements. We've taken into consideration the essential cost changes that the departments have submitted. The first box on the left-hand side. So where we start is we always back out the board reserve that we budget every year, because that then gets put back in at the end based on our variance. We look at all of our salaries, and that calculation is based on current staff, current vacancies, rates that we're paying, and that's where we start our baseline budget for salaries. We also incorporate, which we have been for the last 2 years, we've been using a 2% vacancy rate. Prior to that, we've used a 3% vacancy rate, but we've had fewer vacancies. So just to be safe, we reduced that 3 down to 2%. Some items, like I said, that are contracted or mandatory is like our insurance rates. They saw a significant increase in 25, and then there's going to be another smaller increase for 26, so that 45,000. Hospitalization is based on current staff and what their selections are for Care First, if they're family, spouse, or parent-child, or single. And then we also include in hospitalization a rate for our vacant positions. We don't know what selections a person will take, but we have to fund it. Merchant fees. So we saw a large decrease in merchant. We didn't see a large decrease. We planned for a large decrease in merchant fees because we switched to the auto pay to credit card. And we've seen a large increase in our customers selecting that option. They wanted it, and we offered it. We got it working, and they love it. So now everybody's signing up for auto pay to credit card. It used to be you had to give us your bank information, and that, was not a secure comfort level. But so we saw a decrease in our credit card fees, but then we have to pay more for the auto pay. And we don't charge a service charge to our customers. It's all incorporated into our rates and charges. So that's back in play. OPEB, you can see a large decrease there because our OPEB is very largely funded. We're not at 100%, but we're very close. So we will have a very low, maybe 30,000, I think, for an OPEB contribution next year. Legal services, that will be going out for bid this year. And so we want to make sure we incorporate for whatever the results of that would be. And that's also based on trends. IT overhead, we have a lot more technology and softwares and cloud-based programs that we're using, and that all comes out of our IT overhead subscriptions and licenses account. The FAMLI benefit, Anne Mary had, I think, discussed that with you a month or two ago, and that is at the state of Maryland to provide medical leave, and that is going to be a percent paid by Metcom, a percent paid by the employee. Again, chemicals, we're still seeing increases in chemicals. CDLs, now it's about $4,000 to get $4,000 to $5,000 to get a full CDL, and we've identified 5 positions that will require CDLs. So the increase is $11,000 from over what we already had budgeted last year. Some IT equipment, as we always need to maintain our replacements of laptops and monitors and all that, firewalls. and the Leonardtown Treatment Plant. That's a calculation based on their annual budget and then the treatment, the rates that they process, and we get billed quarterly. And I think, so it's about $200,000 a year. That's what we project our increase will be next year.
Yeah, Leonardtown treats Metcom customers. Some people don't know that.
And then kind of lumped together the group uniforms, internet, fuel, vehicle maintenance, our wireless, Verizon wireless bill, and also the vehicle telematics for the vehicles. Sorry. Okay, so the next side, the left side, new requests with realignments. These were the essential cost changes submitted by the departments. The construction materials, again, that's always, that's where the chemicals and construction materials, we see a large increase in those. We do have to do some sludge hauling at Wycomico wastewater treatment plant. The Marley Taylor lab equipment, that is required inspections to maintain our lab certification. And I'd be remiss, I need to explain the water safety supplies. It's not just water safety supplies for $46,000. That's all the safety supplies for the various operation departments, water and sewer. And then below, we separated out the cost of a merit and a cost of a COLA, and that's based on current staffing. And all our vacant positions are incorporated into that also. And then the market study, we recommend, without knowing the results of that we set aside $200,000 for any possible impact of that, and that you may approve for our positions and where they fall into the salary scale. Did you want to add anything?
No.
And as George had mentioned, employee benefit suggestions. Real quick, we already have a telework remote agreements for some of our positions. There's no cost impact to that. We recommend the continuance of that.
We only put that on there first because of what's been going on in the federal government side, the return to work and the elimination of telework, that it points out it is a benefit to some degree. And there's a lot of consternation going on at this time.
A benefit for the employee or for the corporation?
Employee.
Or both?
It can be both. It can be both. I mean, I find I work longer when I have my laptop because I don't always bring it home unless I am home. So I've seen some.
But that's overtime?
No.
No?
Oh,
Don't
no.
work in the office most of the time?
Yeah, it's not overtime.
No?
No, sir.
Okay.
Anyway, we're not considering eliminating telework, but we do want to recognize that it is a benefit to the employee.
Mm-hmm.
We don't allow full-time telework. It's
Mm-hmm.
2 days.
2 days.
2 days maximum. And again, the family medical leave, on this screen here, that 35,000 is the employee's portion. And we've recently, Anne Mary's been attending some webinars. We're learning it may be deferred, but that will be part of the state's budget if they defer it or not. So we're gonna leave our portion in, but we are recommending that Metcom pick up the share for the employee if we want to offer that as an employee benefit. If it does get deferred at the state level, then this 35,000 would end up getting put into your public hearing reserve.
They're talking about, I think, deferring it to February 1st, 2027, but that has not yet passed.
Mm-hmm.
That equates for the employee to about $13.50 per paycheck if we're going to monetize it. Not a lot, but it's not a lot sometimes that is perceived to be a benefit.
Everside Supplemental Health Care, we're under contract with that. Along with Care First, we have the Everside healthcare system that employees can use, those that are participating in our healthcare. And that, again, is an 85-15% split. We're recommending that Metcom, like you did last year, fund the employees' portion.
The county's doing the same thing. They don't have enough experience. I can only speak from my own experience with it, with no copay and the ability to be able to see a professional in a timely manner compared to my primary care doctor. And I have found it to be extremely beneficial. That $11,000 based on the number of participants would be about $4.20 a paycheck. Again, not a large number, but it may be a nice gesture.
My wife used it the other day, and she likes it. So it was very, she called them, they said, come up, took him, she liked the doctor she saw and stuff.
They have the ability to draw blood, they have a lab on site, they have, again, no copay, which is typically $20 copay. They have prescriptions, your generic standard prescriptions there on site as well, so you don't even have to go to your pharmacy. So set up pretty well.
Next is the comp time approval adjustment. So currently our exempt employees who do not earn overtime, they earn comp time, and it's maxed out at 80 hours. We have several employees that have been at that max and they can't use it. Or just time doesn't allow for them to use it back down to get below the 80. So we're recommending that we raise that cap to 120 hours allowed, and that they could roll over 120 hours instead of 80 hours. So financially, it doesn't really impact your expense budget. But part of our audit and our financial statements, we have to record what's called compensated absences. And that means if we had to pay, if every single employee quit right now, we would have to pay them all the leave they have on the books. And we have to put that as a liability in our financial statements. So it would really only be an impact to that. And we think about $33,000, but it's not an expense.
It's a potential
Impact.
exposure if all 20 of those individuals choose to leave at the same time, which the odds of that are fairly small.
What is next? Health insurance stipend. So we had talked about this, I think, last year for employees who do not participate in the Care First health insurance program. Would we want to offer them a stipend? The county offers a stipend to all their employees who don't participate in healthcare. And we have 19 employees who do not participate in our healthcare program. So that would be a $20,800 impact to the operating budget.
And I don't know whether they do a $1,200 stipend or they prorate it $4.61 per paycheck.
Yeah, it's per paycheck, but for a year, it would be $1,200.
This is basically people whose spouse is employed elsewhere, or
Yes.
is employed elsewhere, et cetera.
They don't take advantage of our health care, they have it
Right.
elsewhere.
And how does that work out to the cost that we actually have for those who are covered?
So our 85%, if it's a full family, our 85% is almost $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. People that don't take out health care, say their wife loses her job on the base with all this, can they come and pick up health care here?
They can, because I believe that's a qualifying event.
But they can do it today.
Yes.
If she got laid off today, they could come in and say, hey, I need health care, and it would pick right up and go. I tell you, as much as I like taking care of the employees, and you know I do, I think if they got health care other places, I don't see paying them $1,200.
Why, we're saving $30,000.
$30,000.
Yeah,
We're saving $30,000 by encouraging them to do that. So we would be
Well, we-
helping ourselves by
Well,
encouraging them to
yeah.
do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can understand that, but if they
You
can
have to be
pick it up.
careful that you don't make the stipend high enough to actually encourage it.
I understand that,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
again, they are saving us $30,000 per person
Person, yeah.
by doing that.
Yeah.
So to
We've got till April. This
me,
is just a list.
we should be taking out the money from the ones that are using Everside and no longer have to pay the co-pays and stuff instead of paying that.
Again, these decisions don't have to be made today, but that's why we have them here for discussion and.
I guess that's the reason I'm bringing it up, because when I worked, I had insurance, but when my wife went to work and had insurance, if I dropped mine, I'm just out of luck. I didn't get a benefit for not doing, for not taking, they didn't pay me for not taking it,
Yeah, they
it's just something.
they kept that $30,000.
Well,
They shower somewhere else.
But,
1,200.
that's just my opinion.
So when I was at county government, way back when, they did it for many, many years. I think it was $600, and then they stopped, and then they stopped for probably 10 years,
Right.
and now they've restarted. Last year they restarted this
Right.
program again. And they admit it's employee incentive. It's
Right. Well, that's good that if something did happen to, like, say, their wife, that they could pick it up here right away.
Yeah.
We talked about the phone stipend. We have 53 staff that use their personal phones. A fully functional Metcom phone is about $44, $45. So increasing the stipend when it uses storage and puts the replacement burden on them is not very significant. It's about $530 impact. And if you add all these up, pre-tax, if all the employees were using them, you're talking $27 pre-tax. It's not a lot per paycheck. It's not always about the dollar amount. One, it needs to make sense, and two, it's about the thought behind it often. But overall, you can see it's not a lot. But we still have a lot of discussion. You can tell, and if you can think of anything else to add to this list, please feel free to add.
And the last two items, we aren't suggesting we consider them. Calvert and Charles both have reduced hour work week. There would not be a financial impact, but there would be a productivity impact. You reduce the work hours, you might have to hire more FTEs.
We looked at I put the term critical infrastructure there because remember during COVID, everybody was sent home, but those people designated as critical infrastructure, and water and sewer were considered critical infrastructure. So a consideration to reduce a work week doesn't seem to align itself with being critical.
And the 401A, which was the supplemental retirement savings option, we've learned the management of it is very cumbersome. We do already have a 457B, and I wanted to get for you the number of employees that have a 457B, but I don't think it's a lot. So I don't think a lot of people would then put money into a 401A if they don't already take advantage of our 457B.
The 401A would be an employer voluntary contribution. And I think that discussion came up when we were talking about health insurance premiums, which is about $34,000 a year. And we use a portion of that to fund the Everside.
So we don't, Metcom doesn't offer a company match or anything?
No, we do not.
But we have the state
Yeah.
retirement.
But we have this, right.
Yeah, we
Right.
have a mandatory contribution to the Maryland State Retirement,
Right.
which,
But it's not like when I was at Verizon, I could put 6% of my salary into a 401, the company matched 6%.
we
don't
don't.
have that, okay.
And as a quasi-governmental agency, we're not allowed to have a 401k.
Okay.
We're allowed a 401a or the 457b.
Are we looking for other ideas at this time, or at
You have
another
one?
time to add?
Do you have one?
Sure.
Y'all can laugh right now, 'cause usually when I say something, you do. But having given the Elks Club this big reduction in their pay and their bill, I mean, why is there some way to have some sort of a incentive program, and that they would offer up a couple of one-year memberships to the Elks? I know that's out there.
Well, we have,
Lotto, something, I don't know.
in the past, have we not been offered, like through the college, a reduced membership
Mhm.
to the
To the gym.
So,
I think the county's offered us a reduced membership to the wellness center at CSM.
Well, I know their reduction was not conditional on anything,
Right.
but if
we can call them back.
yeah, so, we'd like to offer something to our employees. Now, whether it would be, like I said, a lotto, or, I don't know that they'd have to pay into it. It would take a lot of work to figure out what would be the best way, but a few nice bonuses if somebody wanted.
Okay, yes, we'll look
Didn't
into
laugh
it.
too much, okay, that's good.
These slides, the next three slides, they take up probably too many slides. Wanted to keep it readable. That's why the text is so large. But every year, we fund smaller capital equipment, as Patty pointed out, less than $100,000 through depreciation. From our assumptions presentation back in October, we have a target range of between 15 and 20% of our total depreciated value that we record annually. That's about $3.1 million a year. So between $460,000 and $600,000 a year is typically the range of what we budget in our capital equipment request. We do a multi-year forward-looking plan, and if we can skip to the next slide, the next one, you'll see we try to keep that in the neighborhood of around $500,000 per year. So we do also try to balance it out so no year is overburdened. Typically, what you'll see when you go through this list are replacement vehicles. Vehicles are replaced based on age, mileage, engine use, sometimes right sizing, and oftentimes maintenance costs. We have actually, in our vehicle replacement program, if the maintenance cost starts to exceed the residual value of the vehicle, you might want to consider replacing the vehicle. So the majority of this is directly related to vehicle replacement. And also on this slide, the push that this board approved to get SCADA into our northern facilities. That is just it's a big deal for the wastewater folks. Nothing on the lab, nothing at any of the other treatment plants this year or at Marley Taylor. So those are unusual. They take a hiatus in 2026 and they'll have some requests in 2027. And we'll bring this list back to you several times in the future. So if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call or bring it up at the next meeting.
And often during the year, if we identify where we are not, I think we've already been to you once this year, that we're not going to be able to make one of these purchases,
Right.
we realign, identify something that maybe we can move up, or if we have a identified emergency purchase, we always will bring that to you for authorization.
And at the top of the list, I didn't hear any questions. It's developer cost share agreements. If a developer is building, has to install a line to meet his or her needs to meet adequate public facilities, let's say it's an 8-inch line, and for planning purposes, we realize that we're going to need a 10-inch line within the next 10 years. We'll approach the developer and we'll pay the delta between the 10-inch and the 8-inch line. And that's a developer cost share arrangement. We will pay the difference. Typically, it's just the material cost. If you're only going from an 8 to a 10-inch, usually the trench is the same size, the bedding material is the same. But if you're going from a 10 to a 24, sometimes the cost is more than just the difference between the pipe material. It involves either a portion of the trench installation or the trench bedding material. Those, we probably maybe do one a year on the average, but the last 2 years we haven't entered into developer cost share agreement. They're very helpful when you ask people to upsize and they don't have to. It's very difficult to require that on the Metcom side when they're meeting the requirements of their own development. So these cost share arrangements help us out in the long run.
You've seen this slide year after year as we break everything down and incorporate it in one slide for you. So we started the year, we looked at it in two different ways. Based on an estimate for FY25, what we project our mid-year projections will be in the middle column, and 95% of what our budget was. And to be less risky, we decided to start with the 95% of our FY25 budget, the 19,099,517, and that's our baseline. And moving on from that is where we start incorporating all the information that we've just provided you. So the essential cost changes had a reduction of 33,000, and then you can see the balance as it moves down. The new requests and realignments, 166,800. There's no new FTEs being requested this year. The new initiatives, which is the market adjustment, the $200,000, and then the impact of those employee benefit suggestions. The calculated merit increase is 250,000, 2% cost of living adjustment, 185,000. And that brings you to a draft budget of 19,938,316. And you can see from that there is a reserve, a public hearing reserve, 655,283, and that's again, that's above the 1 to 2%. It's 3.29%.
And we'll tell you why in the next couple slides. But that brings a baseline budget below the FY25 approved. And we hope you appreciate the fact that we try to build our budget not based on the prior year approved, but based on what we really believe our expenditures will be.
Right.
And again, you've seen this one before. We have 24 revenue accounts.
42.
24. Did I say 42?
Yeah, no, 42.
I'm sorry, I was reading up
Right.
there. 42. Of course, the sewer and the water are our highest sources of revenue. It's the metered usage that provides the highest use of revenue, the largest budget item. Water, 22%. Of those 42 accounts, it's again generated from the usage charges. We will also look at these account by account with that rate study that we're having performed. So we may see some consolidation, we may see some separation. And I believe I mentioned last month or the month before that we are also looking at the engineering rates and charges.
Rate history, it's exactly what it is. You've seen this before. It's a historical graph showing the past rates, which reflected rates of increase up to 10 to 12%. If you look at FY94 through FY15 and FY06 through FY13, there were periods where we increased our rates 10 to 12%. If you look at the period after the new rate study where we implemented a tiered structure in 2015, that's after that large dip, the rate increases from 19 to FY25 have only been 3.3% and 2.4%, significantly more modest. There's some data points that you see scattered throughout that graph, and the reason that they're specifically stated and pointed out there is the proposed rates that we're recommending for FY26 for sewer are equivalent to what those sewer rates were back in 2015. And on the water side, they're equivalent to those rates that were actually in place back in 2007. So they're rates that they've seen years and years ago, and it's just data points of interest. But the rates of increase are significantly less than they were in the past. But we also have to remember that has nothing to do with the prior management. In those years, the Metropolitan Commission was growing significantly faster as well. So it would be unfair to talk about administrative practices. It's just the fact that our growth is significantly less.
And another format for those rates. The shaded ones are fiscal year 25 and 2026. And we are recommending that we stay flat. Maintain the same rate of increase that we have in FY25 for FY26. And that's at 2.7% and 2.1%. And you can see we've been gradually decreasing our rate of increase. We recommend it stay flat.
Our attorney loves the language, decrease the rate of increase. But there's only one, it's still an increase, but the increase is less. How about that?
But with the rate study, we recommend we just take a pause and maintain the same rate of increase. And then fiscal year 27, we should be on path to incorporate any recommendations that they have. So we looked at different scenarios for the rates. And you can see in the middle the total estimated revenue based on the different rates of increase. And of course, our rate of increase has to support our budget. And a reserve, we would like to always have a reserve. So the same rate of increase, you can see the percent reserve works out to be the 3.29%. And if you look at reduced rates of increase, you still have a reserve. And it's not terrible, but it's not a significant change either. And we do, there is some specific reasons why we recommend maintaining this higher rate of increase. One is tariffs. We don't know the impact yet of tariffs and any of our cost escalation for that. There is the House Bill 909, State Bill 735 for the PFAS, PFOA sludge landfilling.
So we land apply our sludge, and there's legislation in place that is going to require testing, and I think it's 1 part per billion. And if your sludge exceeds that number, then you have to landfill it. We don't know what the results of that are, but we do know that land application costs us $52.25 a ton, and that landfilling costs $120 a ton. We do know we have 5,100 tons a year. So that's really simple math. The potential impact of this House bill, Senate bill, is $355,000. So the idea of maintaining the current rate of increase at 2.7 and 2.1 is there's a potential that $355,000 comes out of that reserve as a legislative impact. So we wanted to make sure we had significant enough reserves remaining, and we don't think that even though there's only a $50,000 difference between the two, we certainly want to err on the side of 50,000 more as opposed to 50,000 less. So that's the reason that we're making that recommendation, to keep our rates of increase at 2.7 and 2.1, which are both extremely reasonable.
What about the potential of the loss of the grant?
These are operating impacts. The others are capital contribution. And there would be other projects there that we'd have to look at moving out that aren't consent decree related. Unfortunately, we looked at that already, and most of our sewer projects, at least on the sewer side, are very much maintenance and infrastructure, preservation and replacement. and necessary, in my opinion. We don't have a lot of big projects, so if that's lost, it's going to be a setback for all the work that's been done on St. Clement Shores.
Increase. And that is for a standard 5/8 inch meter. That's residential customers. That's what we're looking at is the impact to the, or what we're reflecting is the impact to the residential customer. And for the usage per 1,000 gallons, it would be $5.75, which is a 15.
Yay.
We all right?
We are live at the Roxy.
All right, so coming out of it is we are back in session. Do we approve the minutes of the last meeting first and then proceed to?
Let's do the other motion first. If you
Yeah. So do we have a written motion in here or simply make a motion?
Just make a motion.
Yeah.
Make a motion to
Authorize the chairman.
authorize the chairman to proceed
As discussed.
as discussed in
Exactly.
executive session.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Good, good. All right. Now do we have to approve these minutes?
Yes, sir.
All right, so do we have a motion?
We
to
approving the
approve
minutes for the
January
executive session
23rd?
from last month?
Yeah.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes from the executive session from the January 2025 meeting. I don't know what the day was.
January 23rd.
January 23rd, thank you.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Okay, so.
I wasn't here.
Now we have a motion to adjourn.
He's abstaining.
Okay. Yeah, that was an abstain. Okay, because I wasn't here too.
Dale's hand signal for
Right.
abstaining.
Right. This is my next one. I'm out of here. I have something.
All right, so we have a
Motion for
motion to
adjournment.
adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here.
All
who
in
was the
favor?
first and who was the second, please? I'm sorry.
Joe was the
I
motion.
made the motion.
Thank you.
Who was the second?
I'll be
Y'all
the
make
second.
sure